Welcome back to another episode of Airdrie Inside. I am your host, Chris Glass. We are here at Balzac Brewery. They have generously given us this space to host the next couple of podcasts for here in Airdrie. And I am with my guest, Demi Broderick. Demi, welcome to the pod.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Now, Demi, I wanted to have you on this podcast because I've been a longtime admirer of yours.
Oh, thank you.
My kids go to your daycare. They get great care there, and I've seen what you mean to the community. So I wanted to tell a bit of your story and how you became what you are and how you started 2 daycares, a foundation, a tequila company. You have an incredible story.
Sounds a bit busy, hey?
Yeah,
just saying it all.
Sounds like a lot to put in a
little
profile.
exhausting. So I mean, female entrepreneurship and being a woman in business is really important to me. And I think, now more than ever, it really stands out that women are kind of stepping into that role.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. Does it become exhausting? For sure. It's been a wild journey, but it's been incredible. I'm pretty blessed to have been given the opportunities.
Right.
I have been. But kind of how my story started out was that I was a high school teacher. So that's what I originally went to university for at UBCO in Kelowna. And my parents were entrepreneurs, so I kind of always had that born into my body. And
It's always been in the genes.
That mindset, it was always there. And I knew eventually, it would come and I would do something great. But, parents being parents and them saying, okay, well, you have to have a degree to fall back on, in case life gets rough. So I became a teacher because I was always passionate about working with children as well.
Right.
And then I taught in Mexico. I taught in China. And then I came back and I moved to Alberta because I'm originally from Alberta.
So I'm going to stop you there. You taught in China.
Yeah.
What city?
Wuhan.
Wuhan. Okay. So
Which at the time,
we all know about Wuhan now.
well, nobody did then. That was in 2011, 2012.
Wow.
And no one had any clue where it was when I said that name. But now I say it a little bit quieter.
Right. Okay. So how long did you spend in Wuhan teaching?
A year.
And how is it Mandarin or Cantonese there?
Mandarin.
Mandarin. How is your Mandarin?
Nothing anymore.
Nothing anymore.
You lose it if you don't use it.
Of course.
I think the only thing I still have from there is just how to say hello and a greeting, right?
Right.
So it's when you don't have people to practice it with, you lose your second languages that you learn pretty fast.
And in Mexico, where were you teaching?
In Guadalajara.
Guadalajara.
At the American School Foundation of Guadalajara. Yeah.
Okay. So that gives you kind of a bit of a world appeal. And then you came back to Airdrie? Mm-hmm. Or you came back to Alberta, you said?
Well, Calgary. Yeah, Alberta.
Okay.
As I'm originally from here. And then kind of taught here. I ended up working at an early intervention school. And that kind of gave me my niche into working with a younger age group because before, like I said, I specialized in teaching high school. So you go from working with kids and keeping them off their phones to kids throwing toys at each other's heads,
Yeah.
So same but different, I guess. But I found a knack for that. And with the daycares, what got me into that was that I realized there was a bit of an issue with childcare facilities being able to support children with special needs.
Right.
And to no fault of their own other than the qualifications and education, they're just not enough to be working with all needs and all types of children. So I actually left teaching and I opened up my own daycare, which is Creating Futures in Bayside. And we filled our doors within 6 months. A lot of, we take all types of children, but we also have staff that are uniquely trained to work with children if they have a speech language delay, if they have autism, anything like that. Because it's important to me that no child get left behind. And that should be the mandate of early childhood services in Alberta, but unfortunately it's not.
Yeah.
But for me, it is because we're finding more delays now as our population evolves and statistically 1 in every 3rd child is diagnosed with autism now. So that's pretty wild stat for
Right.
you. So we need to make sure that we're educating people to take care of everyone and train them. So we started that. And I have a second location opening down by 40th Ave there. There's a commercial development going up.
Right.
That the government actually endorsed me on. So that was really exciting because I do support inclusive childcare.
Right.
So we worked with the government on that project, which was really exciting for us. And then we also opened up a private ECS program called the Heart for Children. And break.
Wow. Okay. So when you talk about inclusive spaces in daycare, what motivated you to go down that path? Right. That's a pretty specific niche to want to fill.
Yeah. It's, other than being a teacher at an early intervention school, I think and it's very near and dear to my heart, one of the things that happened to me as a parent is that I had a child with ADHD and he got asked to leave 2 of the daycares in Airdrie. And as I shared my story with other mothers, I kind of found out that it was like a bit of an epidemic and that it was happening to a lot of families.
Right.
So just if kids couldn't listen, fall into line, do as they were asked, instead of the daycares educating their staff or sending them for professional development, they just kicked families out, which was atrocious.
Which would be devastating for a family to lose
You're
that.
trying to get back to work. You have young little ones that you're trying to take care of while you're trying to have your career, and your spouse is trying to have their career, and you're trying to be at work. It's pretty devastating. And I phoned the Alberta government about it when it did happen, and I said, surely this is not allowed. And they're like, is it in their policies and procedures that 3 strikes you're out sort of thing? And I said, yeah. And she said, unfortunately, I can't do anything about it. And my jaw just dropped. And I was like, you have got to be joking me. So, of course, I don't settle for answers.
I was just going to say,
so
most parents would end with a complaint to the government and go from there. But instead of ending there, that's not the Demi I know. That's not the Demi that you've shown. That's where you took it from there. So
yeah, do something better. You know what I mean? Take something and do it better and make sure that this feeling doesn't happen to anybody else in our community.
Right.
And I think that most of the families watching this or that'll see this agree with what I've done there. I went further to the top even, and I asked what the certification process for all levels of childcare workers were.
Right.
And it was very evident that, unfortunately, the top doesn't expect much in terms of certification and education of those staff. We're taking care of children in a time at a daycare when their neural pathways are most influential, right? It kind of caps off at 7. So we're helping create all of those. So why aren't you expecting more education out of these people?
Yeah. You're not just filling time. I've always been so impressed when Malia comes home and she has new vocabulary or new skills. And, as a parent, to see the blossoming and her coming alive there has been just a fantastic journey for us.
Yeah, we don't want to be glorified babysitters. We want to do better.
First of all, I can say the care that Malia's got and that Lincoln and Rihanna's got at Creating Futures is one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on. They really view it as a home away from home, and it's a place that we know our kids are going to be taken care of. So I appreciate that side of it.
Thank you.
And then as you're growing, how do you keep that, quality control? Because you go from one location where you're always there to 2 and if not a 3rd location. How do you maintain that control as you grow?
Well, I think the most important part of employing a large amount of people is the vetting process and the interview process.
Right.
It's don't hire the wrong person for the job. Always put the right people in the right positions. And I think like daycares, education, businesses downtown Calgary, wherever it may be,
Right.
you really have to have a clear understanding of people's strengths
Yeah.
and their weaknesses. And you have to put them in the correct job to make sure that they can be successful and or learn and develop as well. So I think that one of the things we do best is we really, in the interview process, it's quite thorough, and we make sure that we are really getting like that true 360 of that person and what their talents are before we put them in a role. We also really, really love elevating our current staff that we do have, right? So putting them in managerial positions or supervisor positions, because I do think it's important in any business to have opportunity for growth.
Yeah, that runway for your career.
Because I mean, one job can kind of be stagnant, right? And like, oh, I'm going to do this 9 to 5 for the next 10 years of my life. Okay, well, like let's give people the opportunity to try something different. And I think, with my third business too, which we have yet to talk about, that I definitely have a portfolio as an employer that allows people to move around if they wish and take on different positions or maybe step away from others and go try something new for a while. And if they don't like it, they can go back. But yeah, that's how we kind of definitely ensure quality control. And our managers have like systems and protocols in check, like daily checklists and everything like that with the daycare, obviously, that they go around and make sure happening throughout the center, but also happening with our parents and our families, right? And making sure that they're withholding to our policies and procedures too.
Now, before I talk about your new business venture, your third business venture, I wanted to hit on one thing about the industry that you're coming from right now. With all the changes that the government implements all the time, it seems like there's a never-ending changes to your business model. So how have you navigated that kind of uncertainty with the federal government having a program, the provincial government instituting it? How do you work through those challenges as a provider?
It's pretty wild. The affordability grant came out, and Alberta was actually the first province in the country to take advantage of that. So, like, kudos to them. I feel like Alberta is always on the cusp of greatness, right? We're always like, and they're innovative, and we can get a hold of those policies and execute them.
Right.
But with that comes perhaps not such a well thought out plan.
Right. Sometimes we're like, first mover
act fast because this is really great and parents are going to love this, but maybe we don't really have it all figured out yet, but we'll get there.
Right.
So I think that's what you're seeing now. And if anyone's a parent in Alberta, they'll understand that something just came out last week about that. And we're in our third year of the affordability grant now. So navigating your way around the changes, they do a really good job of informing us, having town hall meetings, and my staff and I just attend those and try to understand them the best we can.
Right.
I think, that question more so leads to the financial problems and changes of that. Yeah. We have not seen, I think despite what people see on media and some of the providers complaining, I haven't seen a negative downfall to these grants. Of course, the government controls a little bit more of your business in terms of how much you're allowed to inflate your prices.
Right.
But let's be honest, some people were inflating their prices every year or increasing them by 5 or 10%.
Yeah.
Right? So does that match the standard of living? Not particularly. Right. So I think that the people right now that are upset in the industry are the people who, unfortunately, hate to say it, were price gouging and or don't understand how to run the daycare efficiently with the money we have and turn profit. But you can certainly do that still with all of the grants available. And I think that what the Alberta government has done for families is absolutely incredible. I mean,
it's a game changer for Kim and I.
Yeah,
Absolutely
3 years ago, still only people were paying $1,100, $1,500 $1,500 for full-time care right out of their pocket.
Right.
And if they didn't get subsidy, none of that was covered.
Yeah.
And now we're going down to $326 per month across Alberta for all families.
Yeah.
Like, we're living in a wild time. It allows people that were working in minimum wage jobs to go and fulfill those, because we had a lot of vacancy in those jobs in Alberta.
It also encourages women to get back to the workplace after having kids, right? Like, that was one of the biggest conversations Kim and I had is, can we afford to go back to work?
Yeah, is it worth it?
Like, you have to do that math, and that affordability grant really changed the game. Now people can go, yeah, I want to progress with my career. I want to grow, as opposed to taking a 6-year gap in my LinkedIn profile. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's provided economic growth for the province, and I think that they should be really proud of the work that they're doing. And, all that all came down from federal. But, so to touch about one more thing on that topic of how do you navigate the changes, the affordability grant could realistically be gone in 2 years.
Yes.
Because it was only a 5-year term. Now, do I think that if the Conservatives get in, at the top, do I think they would take something like this away? I don't think so.
It's extremely popular.
Provincially,
yeah,
you always know that provincially, Alberta will assess the benefits for our province, even if something federally gets taken away.
Right.
And that even goes to touch on my ECS program. So for PUF funding and mild moderate funding for children with special needs, we're the only province in Canada that offers such great funding to help children in their early years before they reach grade 1.
Really?
For those families. So do I worry about it getting taken away? A bit, but I do think that the Alberta government would then assess, well, do we have it in the budget to help keep this program going because of all of the economic growth that we've seen happen since?
Well, and I think the longer a program's in place working successfully, the harder it is to roll that back, right?
Yeah.
Because parents start to count on it as, this is my path to employment. This is my path to how I'm going to provide for my family.
Yeah.
So it gets a lot harder to take that away.
We hope.
We hope. If anybody's listening to this in power, please do not take that grant away, please. So working with children, right, can be stressful sometimes.
Yeah.
And it might drive you to drink.
This is the thing that everyone says.
So
it can't be my slogan, but I think that all parents tell me this.
So that was my way of segueing into your third business, which is completely different from what you were doing with everything else. It's TQLAVIDA. So you brought me a can, and this is your Paloma cocktail.
Yep.
And you have the margarita there.
Yeah, sure do.
So before we talk about it, I want to actually try it. And
let's crack it open.
Let's go from there.
Do a little
we are
cheers.
recording at 10:30 in the morning, so forgive me here.
I think it's got to be 11 by now.
Oh, it's around 11. Yeah,
5 o'clock.
Good. 5 o'clock somewhere. Oh, that's delicious. That's really, really good.
Good. I'm glad you like it. Yeah.
So obviously the Mexican connection from your time there, but tell me about it.
So TQLAVIDA was a project that was born out of me wanting to utilize my creativity.
Right.
And shall I say, for lack of a better term, adult brain.
Yeah.
With education, it's fun. Your soul's ignited because you're educating the young minds of today. But when they're so little, the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s only take you so far. And
Miss Rachel songs stuck in your head all day long.
Yeah, the hello song and days of the week. So what I found was that there was like part of me that just wanted to do more in terms of having something wildly creative. And in education, it's pretty safe. We don't go on, too many podcasts or social media. You don't put kids on screen. So this was born out of a bad experience with tequila that I had. So everyone remembers turning 18.
Right. Drinking the cheapest possible tequila with salt and lime.
Yeah. And I won't mention who it is, but it's a gold color. And many people know who I'm referring to. So they have a story that started and ended there. Yeah. So our slogan, if you notice on like all the cans, It says I broke up with tequila, but now we're back together.
It's cute.
Because now we live in a world where agave spirit tequila has become popular, and people realize that you can have good tequila. It'll cost you, but you can have smooth tasting tequila that's not this like really like in your face weird bad tasting alcohol.
Yeah.
And so I was in the wine industry in the Okanagan for years when I was working or when I was going to university. So I kind of had an understanding of the beverage industry and what it took to, to like bottle and label and advertise. But what I realized in 2021, I was like, why isn't anyone doing like a low-cal margarita and a Paloma in a can? This would be genius.
Right. When vodka was exploding.
Exactly.
Right. That's when nudes and neutrals were kind of taking over that landscape.
And even back then I had said, because I was like the health conscious person walking around to a barbecue with my vodka, my soda, and my lime. And I was like, this is so annoying. Why doesn't someone put this in a can already? And then there you go. Neutral made millions of dollars. So I'm like, I had this idea. I didn't want to let it get away on me. And I'm like, all right, it's okay. So then in 2021, I had gone down to Mexico with a friend of mine to Tequila, which is in the province of Jalisco. And we found a tequila supplier we wanted to work with. Skip 2, that was 3 months after I opened up my first daycare. And then the affordability grant got launched. And then I was doing 7 tours a day. So tequila kind of took a back seat in 2022, although the plan was there. But then a competitor of mine, which everyone knows who I'm talking about, popped up in the industry. And I was like, there's no way. Like, I can't let this happen. I can't let this be taken from me again. Like the neutral idea and the vodka soda. So I was like, okay, no. Like, we got to get on top of this. So as soon as I got the daycare up and running, stabilized, I ran after this idea. So it actually really only started to kind of be experimented with in 2023. And then we had our launch party, Dia de los Muertos, which means Day of the Dead, in October or on October 28th, 2023. So we've literally just turned 1.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think
in about 6 months, TQLAVIDA can actually go to creating futures.
He's referring to how we take children.
Yeah, wait a minute.
19 months.
Not the drink. And be old enough to attend.
Yeah, and then I think the cool thing, like once we did like product development and recipes, and we were working with the beverage chemist, when we went to brand and market it, we realized that everyone that worked on the project was a female. So the really cool thing about the project is that it's women-owned and women-created. It's not all women-ran because I do have a diverse amount of employees and genders that work for me. But it was like a pretty cool thing to be able to say because I would say about 85 to 90% of alcohol, like independent label alcohol owners are men actually in the industry, which there's nothing wrong with that. There just hasn't been a lot of females that have like taken that on. And so I can tell you a little bit about how we came up with the label because of that. So,
and it's a very distinctive label. Like this is very branded well. This is branded very well. Like it stands out. You can see it on the shelf.
Yeah. So we came to this design because I didn't want like an agave plant with a slice of fruit. To me, that was boring. Like, okay, be like everybody else, right? And that's one thing I have never been my entire life is like anybody else. So we arrived with a sugar skull because I've always loved that look. And as you know, it can get very artistic and they'll do like a lot of painting and it's beautiful. So I'm like, why don't we do a sugar skull and then put the agave plant on her head for a crown for a queen.
Right.
So that's how we kind of got to that. And I was at my branding and marketing team's head office. It's Blackwater Creative, by the way, they're in Calgary. And I took a piece of paper. I was like, hey, this is kind of like what I want. And it was the worst. It looked like a 3-year-old drew it. like a skull like this and this crown. And then it's going to say TQLA down the side because we wanted to come up with like a fun acronym for it. So tequila, Vida, and nice and short for the can. So that's kind of how that all came about.
That's excellent. It's funny because I'm a Scotch drinker and a beer drinker, and I really liked distinctive Scotches And about 3 years ago, I started to get into sipping tequila as opposed to, like you said, when you were kids, or like not kids, but when you were 18, 19, you take a shot of it. There's such good tequila now that you can have a nice glass and enjoy it like a scotch, enjoy it like a nice bourbon in the same kind of way. So it's interesting to see it breaking through mainstream now, becoming part of that culture.
Yeah, and to that point, what everyone is realizing now is that tequila on its own is one of the cleanest spirits that you can put into your body. So if you were to just, as you say, have your sipping tequila, for instance, a few glasses of that on a Friday night, you don't wake up with a hangover. I guarantee you, try it. I promise. You won't wake up with a hangover. And you won't wake up with a hangover with these too much either. But we sweeten the drink with agave syrup.
Yes.
Because we wanted that authentic Mexican flavor. So refined sugar is way cheaper. Don't get me wrong. Wish I was just dumping that white sugar in there. But we use agave syrup. And I think what it does is add that like juiciness on the palate and that roll off the tongue rather than cutting it short, almost like a vodka soda. Like there's no... full flavor on those. It just falls very dead on your tongue. So I think
you're drinking a low-cal drink. You know, like it feels like that when you're drinking like a vodka soda.
Yeah. And we tried to like change that a little bit and be innovative in the sense that I'm like, guys, like a margarita is supposed to taste like lime juice. It's supposed to, and then the Paloma is like grapefruit juice, right? So how can we achieve this, but then not add more calories with sugar content and all of that, right? So we work with specific ingredient suppliers that just offer like a really decent product. Like I said, I'm sure we can get it cheaper, but one thing I will never do is put my product or put my name on a product that is mediocre, right? I want it to be the best. And I think the interesting thing about this is that all of the golf tournaments we were part of last year, all the liquor store tastings we were part of, is that people said, I like our competitor. I like them, but I like these more. Yeah. And our jaws all just dropped because that was the point of the project. I was like, let's set the bar to the highest standard we can and see what people think about it. So once people try it, they like love the flavor. They kind of get hooked. And so now we're sold in liquor stores across Alberta, all the way from Fort Mac down to like Crow's Nest.
Excellent.
And British Columbia sells us now. We just hopped into their market in May of last year. We are in Saskatchewan in the next month. And Ontario is now going to be picking us up. Kind of did like a jump over Manitoba just because of politics. Nothing against them. It's just some of the boards.
There's some very strange free trade rules. I know with all the tariff talk that this is kind of the barriers between provinces has been highlighted and brought to the surface a little bit more. But everybody I talk to in the liquor business talks about barriers and rules and how we're starting to get around them now and provinces are starting to be a little bit more progressive. But this has been a challenge since day one for a lot of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it shouldn't be. But it's just like careers in Canada too, right? Teaching, anything like that, or, having a certification and then going province to province and we're jumping through hoops. Why are we doing that, right? If we want to be the best country we can be. But, yeah, we're on golf courses, liquor stores, on premise now in Calgary at some of the bars and pubs.
Excellent.
So it's growing. And, it's only been a year, like we've only been on shelves for a year and like 3 months at this point. So we've achieved a lot. A lot of brands will take a couple years to hop out of a province, but we wanted to scale it nationally as fast as we
you can.
Yeah.
Well, if you fill that space, there's no room for other people to take it.
Yeah, and we even brought you a little toque because it's been really cold for those of you who know in Calgary the last few days. So we wanted to keep your little head warm.
I appreciate that. That's great.
We brought you a toque.
We have 2 flavors, but I've heard a rumor that there's a 3rd flavor coming along. I know you're not allowed to tell
There's
me.
actually, so interestingly enough, there's also another one, but it doesn't have tequila in it. So
Okay.
the new flavor, I just got in from Vancouver last night. There was a disaster at Calgary Airport. None of the planes were coming through, but I got here because I wouldn't miss your podcast for the world.
I appreciate that.
And I did product development on both flavors yesterday. So I can officially say that we are coming out with a non-elk. So for those of you who broke up with tequila and aren't getting back together yet, we've got a non-elk option. And that's just because obviously we are living in a world now where people are wanting more non-elk options for like
the mocktail.
dry January, or, they got to be the DD for the night. And instead of stopping at 2 stores, your partner or your friend can pick up alcohol, but they can also pick up the non-elk right there too,
Right.
which is really nice for them. So we're doing our margarita in
Excellent.
non-elk. And if there's enough interest, we might end up doing the Paloma as well. But for now, we're doing the margarita this year. And the new flavor is still secret. I can't say what it is yet because it's still in development.
Right.
But I can say that we are attempting to use ingredients that no one else is using in a tequila beverage right now in Canada.
Oh, wow.
So I
Okay.
shoot for the stars.
So when are we going to find out about this new flavor?
So what are we in February? It'll be released in April in a variety pack with the margarita and the Paloma.
Okay.
Yeah, so if that all works out, it's successful on the bench. Because here's the thing, and this is why we don't talk about our flavors until they're successfully released, is because you can have an idea, but no matter what ingredient supplier supplies it, like you just can't achieve a good taste.
Right.
So you want to make sure that the
make sure
recipe
you have
is
that product
solidified
done. Yeah.
before you promise the world anything. And I know that because people get excited about it, because I'm already excited about it. But I don't want to let anyone down if we can't get there. I'm confident we can, but I just want to make sure we can before announcing it.
So you have a tequila company. You have 3 daycares and education centers. That's a tremendous amount done in a lifetime.
Thanks. I've done it in 3 years. If you want to know.
and I've seen the hustle up close, and it's quite inspiring. I mean, I wanted to have you on because I enjoyed the beverage, and my kids go to your daycare, but I really wanted to talk about your story and to talk about that entrepreneurial spirit that I think is alive and well in our city. And you're seeing some of the most creative people come up with products out of Airdrie, and it's great to see, and you're leading the way. And I just heard that you were named 40 under 40 here for Avenue Magazine. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, now you're putting an age on me, but I feel like
I didn't say how under 40 you were.
Yeah, actually, so yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Avenue Magazine out of Calgary, I've been nominated for Top 40 Under 40. So I think that information is going to be released here in March or April. In terms of like voting. I think they placed it out to the public in Calgary for voting. So it's an honor to be recognized for that, because I think one thing as an entrepreneur, it's a very lonely journey, that I can promise you. But every now and then, there's a beautiful little piece of recognition, and we get pretty excited about that. Well, I guess we sit in it for about 10 minutes, fill out our forms, and then go on to the next business problem.
Right.
But at least you get to celebrate and feel confident that what you're doing in the community is being recognized, because I have created jobs in Airdrie. Just the one daycare alone has 30 employees.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How many employees do you have here in Airdrie, or will you have once everything's open?
So the tequila company, we have 3.
Okay.
We've got 7 at the schools, like the ECS program, Heart for Children.
Yeah.
So you're going to go up to about 10 there. We've got 30 at the daycare, so we're up to 40. The new daycare will have 40. So we're going to be, we'll end up having, and then we have substitutes too because kids are a little bit germy. So the adults get sick quite a bit too. but we'll probably realistically have anywhere between 80 to 85 staff
So in 3 years,
under all of my businesses.
So in 3 years, you've created 85 jobs in our city.
Yeah.
So I think that is an impressive story in itself.
Thank you.
We're almost done for time, and this has been a great journey. Don't kid yourself. I'm going to finish. But what I wanted to ask was kind of a final question. I had one of our female raiders on for the tackle football team, a girl named Olivia Trudeau, who I think has a very bright future ahead of her as well. What advice do you have to somebody like Olivia about being a female entrepreneur and how to go about it? Because, whether or not you like to think of it, you're a role model for girls like her looking up. So
thank you.
What advice do you have?
So I think I have 2 pieces of advice. Never let anyone tell you that you can't do it.
Okay. That's great.
And that's your business piece of advice. And I think the personal side of things is live for the moments you cannot live without.
Right.
Because I think no matter what, we still have to enjoy ourselves. And business, like I said, can be lonely, trying, exhausting.
Right.
But if you don't find the excitement and the joy in it at some point, you really kind of lose the passion for being an entrepreneur.
Right.
Right. I never let anyone tell me that I couldn't do something, and I never let anyone tell me no. I try. It's opportunity for growth and to change someone's mind and practice my negotiating skills.
I love that. I love the positive slant on it.
Mm-hmm.
Last question I have for you is what's next? What's the 4th company?
Oh, God. Everyone always asks me
Because
that.
we all know it's going to happen.
I
So
know,
what's the
I
next?
know.
Are you going to displace something else? Create something new? What?
I mean, who knows? I'm sure the daycares will keep growing. My mind runs 10 miles a minute every day thinking like, oh, there's not a process for that. Oh, someone should do that. Someone should create a piece of technology for this. It
Right.
never shuts off. So I'm not sure where we're going to go. But, I think right now we'll focus for the next year or 2 into dialing in these companies. And I'm sure in 6 months I won't be saying that anymore. But innovation, right? So I enjoy trying to create things that people aren't doing, which is why, like I said, in 2021, this was a forefront thought before anyone else was doing it.
Right.
The daycares, creating a space that no one else, inclusive childcare, has really done successfully in Alberta. So whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be something on the cusp of greatness and something that is innovative and wild and going to take up 10 more hours a day that I don't have. But, it all comes down to being worth it in the end. Like the daycare in its first year of being open, we won Best Daycare in Airdrie.
Right.
The Margarita won an Alberta Beverage Award in our first year of being open. So somehow I kind of managed to, I think, hopefully produce good quality things.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me, Demi. I've always been such a big fan of yours and the work you do in our city. And I really wanted to lift up your story so people know that whether it is a daycare or whether it is a tequila company, that there's nothing too big coming from Airdrie. There's no dream too big from our city. So
absolutely not.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
And thank you for spending some time with us on Airdrie Inside. We're going to be back next week with another great episode. Thank you. Cheers.